It was the kind of night that no one could have expected. People had gathered in the church with excitement, laughter, and the kind of joy that only comes from music and testimonies. Everyone was waiting to see the legendary First Lady of Gospel, Pastor Shirley Caesar. She was smiling, hugging people, and giving her usual warmth to the crowd. For decades, she had been the voice of hope, the one who carried others when they were weak. But that night, something happened that turned celebration into fear. You won't believe how quickly everything changed. As the program continued, Shirley's face slowly began to lose that bright smile. At first, it was small, something many didn't notice. She moved carefully towards the podium and placed her hand on it for balance. Her voice caught slightly when she started to speak, but no one thought much of it. Then destiny took an unexpected turn. Within moments, she collapsed to the ground in front of the shocked congregation. Gasps filled the sanctuary. People shouted. Some froze in disbelief, while others rushed forward. The most powerful woman in gospel music, the woman who never seemed to falter, was now lying on the floor in a vulnerable state. This is where it gets interesting. Some people immediately fell to their knees, forming prayer circles. Others pulled out their phones, unable to believe what they had just seen. Videos began spreading online even before she was lifted onto the stretcher. The craziest part was how fast her name started trending. Within minutes, news outlets and blogs picked up the story while fans from around the world sent frantic messages asking what had happened. For a woman who spent her whole life giving others strength, now the whole world was suddenly praying for her. Emergency services arrived quickly. Paramedics checked her condition, moving with urgency while the entire church held its breath. Some witnesses cried openly, saying it was the most terrifying moment they had ever seen. And let me tell you, the shock wasn't only about her collapsing. What made this story different was who she was. This was Shirley Caesar, a woman who for over 50 years had been on stage ministering, singing, lifting up millions of souls. To see her fall like that reminded people that even legends can face moments of weakness. But here's the shocking part. No one really knew why it happened. As she was rushed into the ambulance, whispers began filling the crowd. Some said she looked tired earlier in the evening. Others swore they saw her clutch her chest. Theories started almost immediately. Was it a heart problem? Was it exhaustion? Could it have been the stress of her endless ministry and travel? This is how rumors start, and they spread faster than facts. Everyone wanted an answer, but no answer had yet come. By the time Shirley reached the hospital, the entire gospel community was already shaken. Social media was on fire with fans begging for answers, and others spreading their own versions of what had happened. The craziest part was that no official statement had come out yet, which only gave more room for speculation. Some people online claimed she had been secretly battling health problems for months. Others insisted that doctors had already warned her to slow down, but she refused because she believed her work was not yet finished. This is where it gets interesting. Everyone had a theory, but no one had the truth. Inside the church that night, many witnesses kept replaying the moment in their minds. One woman said it was like watching a pillar of strength suddenly crumble. Another said she had never prayed so hard in her life. Let me tell you, this wasn't just about one person collapsing. It was about someone who had given her entire life to serving others, suddenly becoming the one who needed prayers. That is what made people break down in tears, because Shirley Caesar wasn't just a singer. She was a symbol of faith and resilience. But here's the shocking part. Even as fans were begging for updates, videos of her fall were circulating nonstop. People argued online about whether sharing those clips was respectful or not. Some believed it was a violation of her privacy, while others said it was proof of how serious the moment was. What makes the story different is the way it spread like wildfire. Normally, a health scare might stay private, but Shirley's collapse was witnessed by hundreds, filmed by dozens, and shared by millions. It was as if the whole world was suddenly inside that church, gasping at the same time. And then came the rumors about what could have pushed her body to this point. Some claimed she had been on an exhausting schedule, traveling and ministering without enough rest. Others believed it was stress, a heavy burden she carried because she never wanted to say no when people needed her. The most emotional whispers suggested she ignored her own health for the sake of her calling. You won't believe how fast these whispers turned into headlines. Blogs and social media accounts didn't wait for doctors to speak. They built their own stories and spread them everywhere. Destiny took an unexpected turn that night, not only for Shirley Caesar, but for her community, too. People who had always seen her as unbreakable were suddenly forced to see her as human. And while many begged for patience, the lack of facts made people restless. This is how a simple health scare turned into a wave of controversy. People weren't just worried anymore. They wanted answers. They wanted truth. And they wanted it now. As hours passed, the silence from Shirley Caesar's family only made things more tense. Fans were desperate, and the longer it took for official news to come out, the more the rumors began to sound believable. Some blogs claimed she had ignored warning signs from her doctors. Others painted her as a warrior who simply gave too much of herself to everyone else. Let me tell you, both of these stories pulled people's emotions, but the truth still remained hidden. And this is where it gets interesting. When people don't know the facts, they create their own versions of the truth. Gospel insiders also began to speak off the record. One artist whispered that Shirley never said no to anyone. If a church invited her, she went. If people needed prayer, she was there. If fans wanted her to sing, she gave her all. But here's the shocking part. Some insiders believe this unstoppable energy was the very thing that had now pushed her body beyond its limits. The craziest part was how quickly this private concern turned into public debate. Some defended her as a tireless servant of God, while others argued that she had ignored her own health for too long. Meanwhile, her legacy itself made the collapse even more painful to witness. For decades, Shirley Caesar had been more than a singer. Her music had carried people through their darkest storms. Songs like No Charge and Hold My Mule became lifelines for countless fans. What makes the story different is that the woman who once gave strength to millions was now in a position where she needed that strength returned to her. For many, it felt like the roles had been reversed in the most heartbreaking way. And then destiny took another unexpected turn. After hours of silence, a statement finally came from the family. They confirmed she was stable and under observation. Doctors were still running tests, but she was alert and resting. This brought some relief, but it also opened more questions. Why did she collapse? Was it a simple case of exhaustion or something more serious that could affect her future? People wanted to breathe easy, but the lack of specific answers kept the controversy alive. Fans around the world began organizing prayer circles. Hashtags like #PrayForShirleyCaesar trended across social media. Churches dedicated entire services to her healing. And gospel radio stations played her songs nonstop. And let me tell you, this wasn't just about music anymore. This was about a community trying to give back the hope and faith she had poured into them for decades. But here's the shocking part. Even in this moment of love, there were still whispers about whether she should step back for good. Some wondered if this collapse was not just an incident, but a sign of a turning point in her journey. In the days that followed, Shirley Caesar remained under close medical watch. Updates from the family continued to assure fans that she was stable and resting. But the mystery of what truly caused her sudden collapse was never fully revealed. And you won't believe how restless that made her supporters. For some, it was enough to know she was alive and recovering. For others, it felt like the silence was hiding something bigger. This is how controversy doesn't just fade. It grows stronger when questions remain unanswered. What makes the story different is the way people responded. Instead of moving on, the community held on tighter. Fans refused to stop praying. Celebrities sent public messages of love. And churches across the country kept her name alive in their sermons. It was as if the whole gospel world paused, holding its breath for the woman who had carried them all for so long. Destiny took an unexpected turn, but the love that followed showed just how deeply she had touched lives. But here's the shocking part. Whispers of the future started to overshadow the present. Would Shirley Caesar ever return to the stage with the same fire? Or would this be the moment she finally stepped back, choosing health over the heavy demands of ministry and music? Some argued that she had already given enough, that it was time to rest. Others refused to accept that her voice could ever be silenced. Let me tell you, these debates revealed just how powerful her presence had been, because people were already afraid of what life would look like without her leading from the stage. The craziest part is how one moment could change the entire conversation about her legacy. For years, Shirley Caesar had been seen as unstoppable, untouchable, a symbol of faith that never wavered. But now, her collapse reminded everyone that even legends are human. And yet, Maybe that is what makes her story so powerful. She was never just a gospel artist. She was a living testimony. And in her most vulnerable moment, the world finally saw her humanity. As days turned into weeks, reports suggested doctors were optimistic, but they stressed that rest was necessary. Still, uncertainty lingered. Would she rise again and reclaim her throne in gospel music? Or had destiny chosen a new chapter for her, one of peace, rest, and reflection? That was the unanswered question, the one that kept fans glued to every update. For now, the world waits. The Queen of Gospel, who gave decades of strength and faith to millions, was now receiving that same strength in return. And while no one could say what tomorrow would bring, one thing was clear: her story was far from over.